Come see The Sound of Music
From today to 15th of January.
here at the Istana Budaya.
Hi, come see us.
Can I have one photo? Play Liesel.
My name is Trevor Martin, and I play Captain Von Trapp.
I'm Anthony C. Daniel, and I'm the tour associate director.
Hello, and I'm James Gray. I'm the tour choreographer.
All right, so can we have the first question? Maybe you can introduce yourself, where you're from, and then after that, who you want to address your question to.
Some people have come from, they have been with the show prior to this, and some of the auditions we held on Zoom because we weren't allowed to be in a room with anyone, which was a new experience, and that's been happening a lot now in Hollywood and in New York. And so we met the whole company on Zoom, more or less, right? Went through all their auditions and then fully met in person in Singapore. We rehearsed in Singapore.
Second question?
Yes, so that was part of the plan when Broadway Asia and Base Entertainment partnered up to bring the production to Singapore and Malaysia.
Wonderful. It was a wonderful idea from Base Entertainment in connection with Broadway Asia that we did tap into the local culture here and incorporate these wonderfully talented and beautiful kids into the show. And in Singapore, we also had 3 other sets of local Singaporean kids. So it was wonderful to, over the course of 35 children over the past 2 months that have.
Absolutely. So yes, it is different every single time. You know, it's really interesting, especially as the local children, both in Singapore and here, are my children in the show, and obviously Lauren as well as the oldest of them. So that's at least a little helpful that we have that consistency going through each of them. But it makes it really exciting because they all learn it before they get there. They all know their lines and their music and all those types of things. And it's a pretty crazy process to show up and just be like, it's so nice to meet you, my children, you know, that type of a thing is very bizarre, especially having 3 casts in the countries that we've gone to. But it's a really beautiful thing, and having the poster of all the pictures and making sure we know everyone's names and what characters they're playing and all that type of a thing is great. And what you mentioned with the accents and things like that too, it's very interesting. In Singapore we had some New Zealand accents. It's a very international cast when it comes to the children, and I find it's a really beautiful thing because the show is the same regardless of those things, because children are children regardless of what country we're in or where they might be from or where we're from. And that universality of the casting when it comes to that, I think really brings an important and new thing to this particular production.
And even adding on to that, part of Jack O'Brien's original vision of this show was really bringing these individualities out and the personalities out of these children, because as I'm sure we've all seen productions of Sound of Music before, whereas, to quote a line from the show, when Maria calls them little marching machines, and very often that is what you see in the Von Trapp children. But part of what Jack really wanted to do with this production was focus on how special each one of those children really are. So really incorporating the local cultures, both Singapore and here, has been even more exciting to tap into that and dealing with the accents and letting these kids really bring a lot of who they are as individuals to the roles. So that was a really awesome part of it as well.
And that's a big thing, because people have seen the show. It's been since the 60s, right? And the movie. Oh, I've seen, The Sound of Music. You've not seen this version of The Sound of Music. Yes, there's beautiful songs and the story is there, but I think from what you watch today, you can see there's just a different edge. Nothing that changes the beauty of this story, but it's relevant today. And we're incorporating everyone. And I'd love Jill here to talk about, she's worked with so many different children playing these roles. And just watching her last night, we had our first preview with them. Well, tell us your experience with the children.
There have been many wonderful children who have
come into these roles, and we call them our Von Trapplings. It's a very endearing way of referring to them. One thing that I really like to do before every show is sometimes we have different groups, right? So we have different families that come in. We have our red group, our blue group, our green group. But I personally like to not know which group of children is performing, so that when they make their first entrance, I'm meeting them for the first time. And I know earlier we were talking about keeping things fresh, and for me that helps keep that really authentic first meeting and getting to know these children. And I always say there is nothing like watching a child light up on stage, and you can't fake the smiles and the laughters of children, and 9 times out of 10 they're my scene partners. So these kiddos are working really, really hard, and if I'm tired, I can only imagine how tired they are. So I look to them for a little inspiration now and then, and we just kind of, you know, work together, bantering back and forth, finding our most human experience. And the relationship that I may build with one Brigitte versus another one will be different, and it's live theater, anything can happen. So that keeps us on our toes, and we keep playing with that, which is really a beautiful thing.
And that's what we saw in the auditions, seeing the children's their individuality, their personality. So we didn't want anyone like the movie or like anyone else, that we wanted the essence of them and then help them find this character themselves. And if you come back 3 times and see our 3 different groups of children, you'll see a very different, it's the same word, but their energy, their little personalities, you'll see a big difference in a good way.
It was really wonderful when James and I were here this summer doing these auditions, and we were constantly telling the children, we want you to be you. We want to see who you are. Yes, we need to know that you can sing and say the lines and do the steps, but we are looking for these personalities. And we had one of our children who wound up in the cast with us, came up to us and said, I'm just so relieved because I get to be me. And it was such an endearing moment, and that's all we've done is encourage them to just be themselves and bring their lovable personalities to the production, because it just, and I think when you see the show, it shows how the chemistry with Lauren and Jill and Trevor just really comes through, and each group is so different in such beautiful ways.
And what I hope is what happens if families come to see the show with their children, maybe they don't sing or dance, but they see themselves up there. Not the kids in the movie because they're blonde, right? That they see themselves, that this would really push more children here to sing and dance and act. Maybe not to go into the business, but to have that experience. Because we have seen these children grow over the 4 weeks we've been rehearsing with them. So that's just 4 weeks. Can you imagine 4 years at school, singing and dancing as well? So that's been special.
So, members of the media.
Performance of this particular production. Thank you. Last night.
Jill
yes.
also celebrates hers this
Yeah,
week.
Jill will celebrate hers and next week. Yeah.
Friday.
Yes. So we've been working on this now for 3 years. Yeah, and it's incredible to grow up with this music. I grew up with this music and every other Rodgers and Hammerstein music. Of the music for Climb Every Mountain, and my heart still skips a beat. It's music that is timeless. It's music that will transcend every kind of genre. If you have a heart and 2 ears, you love this music, and being able to deliver a song like Climb Every Mountain for the end of the first act and the finale as well, with the whole ensemble backing me up too. It's incredible, and I never ever get tired of singing this music. And my favorite things, which I know most people think, my favorite things is with the kids, but it's with me and Maria. And I think, going back to the original score and the original show, which is different than the movie, which so many people are familiar with. I think too, there's so much coloring in the lyrics, not just the music, which is gorgeous, and these melodies will forever be in everybody's heads, but just the lyrics too. The lyrics are some of my favorite lyrics of all time. The beginning of 1617 Reprise, where a bell is no bell till you ring it, a song is no song till you sing it, and love in your heart wasn't put there to stay. Love isn't love till you give it away. Like, that's incredible lyrics, and I think that's what's really rings true of this music, of the show in general. how the music and the lyrics really support the story as well, because this is a story that needs to be told over and over and over again. And if we had music that kind of, you know, dragged and didn't, it was like, oh, okay. But, you know, we get to these scores, and the way Andy Einhorn really revamped these orchestrations, it's like you're hearing the show for the first time. Even if you grew up with Sound of Music, I remember hearing the orchestra playing the entr'acte for the very first time years ago, and I cried, you know, even just music by itself and hearing the musical themes over and over again. Raj and Hammerstein knew what they were doing, so it's wonderful.
That's a great question. Yeah, careers, we span a lot of different types of shows. Obviously, we very rarely get the opportunity to do a show like this for a long period of time, so we do a lot of different things. And in the rest of my career, I've done a lot of newer shows, new works like this. And it's interesting, right? This is a show that's been around for a long time. It's also a show that's based in reality. I mean, Georg von Trapp and Maria were both real people. This is a real story. Obviously, there are things that are brought into a little bit more of a musical theater world when it comes to that, but those stories is real. And even more important than that, the context of the story is very real with World War II and where this is coming from, and the annexation of Austria and then having to leave, and all of those types of things are just as relevant today as they were then. And I think that that is one of the things that makes me so attracted to this particular show, is because this story, yes, it happened 70 years ago and was told 10 years after that in musical form and movie and all these things, but this particular story is happening right now in multiple countries currently. So that's one of the things that draws me to new works, is the more relevance of something with the current events or something that is about us right now. And again, the show, you know, it has all these warm, it kind of feels like, especially with the music, that it's like, because I do think that it is incredibly universal, no matter where we are.
I'm trying to think of, I mean, of course touring is challenging. I got to tour with the show on the last leg of the North American run, and yeah, I think it was challenging to make it here. As James mentioned, we were slated to come like 3 years ago, so I remember when we arrived in Singapore, where we rehearsed for the first time with this new company, we were like, okay, we're here, I can't believe it. So I think, yeah, COVID made it a challenge, and but it's just such a joy, I think, too. Like, we're all here because we really love the show and we believe in what we're doing, and getting to see all these different countries and work with local children is like a life-changing experience that I will never take for granted, and it makes it all worth it.
It's the resilience too. We've all been resilient through this terrible time, and we've grown and learned. It's the same with the company when we've met, because we have to wear masks, we do COVID testing, we've got to make sure the kids are safe, and we've just got on with it. There's not been one person who's stopped us. Everyone here, this beautiful theatre, has helped us, because it's teamwork. Nothing can be, it's not just Jill or the sound or the lights, it's we all have to come together. And I think that's a lesson, I hope, that these young children will take away, that no one does it by themselves, it's the group, the team together. And that's the story we are showing, the resilience of one family. This man said, no, I'm not going to bow to these people, I'm not. And that's a lesson for all of us, because that's a hard thing to do. And again, as Lauren and Jill were saying, our creators, the original creators, this is a classic, but it's fresh, it's relevant today. So when the audiences come and see this, I keep saying this, because people say, oh, I've seen The Sound of Music. No, you've not seen this version. And especially young Lauren here, who plays Liesel, I truly love 16 going on 17. No, because she's Lauren's new job. This version of 16 going on 17 is quite different to anyone that's been done. And that comes from our wonderful, the original choreographer, Danny Mefford. The choreography comes from the story. Tell the story. What are these two young people feeling? What are Maria feeling? What is Captain feeling? And that's beautiful. Would you like to talk about the 16 and 17?
Sure, yeah. yeah, in our version, in the music, I don't quite understand what Rolf is saying, but it is hinted at where he's heading by the end of the show. And yeah, our production, and especially 16 going on 17, has a different edge than the movie. It's fueled by real attraction between two young people. Rolf is from the wrong side of the tracks in our show, and Liesl is on this beautiful, villa on a hill. So that's kind of what makes our version exciting. But yeah, I've loved working with James. I think the choreography is beautiful, and I think you'll enjoy the number.
All right. And adding to that too, the joy in the theater every night and watch it and see it grow and finesse it in and of itself, but it's also watching the audiences and listening to the audiences and how they just lean into it.
Yes.
And
these auditions, they don't. They lean. We were sat in the back of the house. You see everyone. They know the show, or they want to hear this story.
And the joy of everyone walking into the theater with an expectation of the sound of music, and they get exactly what they came for, and then an entirely different way. And they walk out, and the way we hear at intermission and at the end of the show, people are like, oh, I'd forgotten how much I love this piece. And it stands the test of time of why this piece is still a classic and will always be.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen, ladies, and
Thank you for
very
coming.
much
Thank you,
members of the
everyone.
media.